I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the February 1st, 2023 Fitchburg Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission has 7 members. Members are citizens residing in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. The Commission is appointed by the City Council and serves on a volunteer basis. The Commission collaborates with the residents, businesses, and organizations to facilitate compliance with the 8 interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Fitchburg Wetlands Bylaw. Meetings of this commission are subject to and abide by the open meeting law. If you would like more information about any of these regulations, feel free to ask a commissioner, agent, or environmental consultant. Thank you for your commitment to the conservation of our natural resources. Thank you for your patience as we navigate this hybrid meeting. The Commission requests that folks wishing to speak approach the podium and speak clearly into the microphone, and remote attendees maintain microphones on mute for privacy. If you would like to speak, use the chat or raise your hand function to alert the chair of your intention. Be advised this public meeting is being live streamed and recorded by FATV. If a member of the in-person audience is recording this meeting, this is your opportunity to identify yourself for the public record. No one's identifying themselves as recording this. So let's call the roll. Commissioner Bro?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Christian?
Here.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Yeah.
Commissioner Helene is not in attendance.
I don't see her now.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Here.
Commissioner Satterfield's in attendance. Let's see. Can I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of the special meeting site walk from January 14th, 2023?
Motion to accept.
And do we have a second?
Well, yeah,
second, Tracy.
first, so, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that everybody? I guess. Okay. Let's see. Butter notification cards. Well, actually, before we do that, before we jump into the public hearings, let's welcome Mr. Peter Kettle to the podium, if that's okay. We'll get you out of here, Mr. Kettle. Yeah. Mr. Kettle is under other business, and we'd like to thank you for your patience as we change the agenda slightly to accommodate Mr. Kettle. Mr. Kettle, if you would please be brief and
5 minutes? Is that okay?
what's going on? Hold on 1 second, Mr. Kettle. What's going on with the...
It's not on mine, though.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Kettle.
Oops. There we go. Okay. Peter Kettle, 44 McIntyre Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I actually spoke to the Conservation Commission was on the 22nd of October 2020 with an email back from Chair Satterfield. And the thing that really struck me as being of concern and very nice was the fact that, as Ms. Karen mentioned, if you could read it, the Conservation Commission, I'll just go down to where you say you ensure compliance with regulations throughout the entire process, and that really struck me. And we moved into the current house that we have in 2001. And just to tell you where we are, Sheldon, Williams, McIntyre, and Alpine, and our property is circled in the yellow square. It goes further than that, but just for this it's fine. Now, when we moved in, for 19, 20, 21 years, we've had a dry basement and garage for 21 years. That's the house. I took that in September of last year. And since that time, in 2019, 2021, a new development was put up on the opposite side of McIntyre that encompassed approximately 9 acres of land. And there was another 9 acres of land put down Williams. Now, those 9 acres of land, I did a little bit of research on rainfall, and basically 1 inch of rain on 1 acre of land produces 27,000 gallons of water for 1 inch. And what we have 9 acres of land, we have 48 inches, which is the average rainfall in Fitchburg, so we have over 1 million gallons of water that need to go somewhere. Now, if we look at the way the water comes down to the McIntyre area, it comes over Sheldon, it comes down the valley, it comes off Williams, and if I go back just 2 years ago, the rain would actually coagulate on the opposite side of where we are on McIntyre, and there was a natural stream that went down there, and it formed a pond, which was beautiful. But sometimes the DPW had to come up, had to clear the pond because it got too big, it came onto the road, especially in the winter when it froze. Now, when they did the new road, the DPW actually put some new pipes underneath the road. And those pipes, I believe, are maybe 12 inches to 18 inches. And there they are. Now, it doesn't matter how hard it rains, those pipes never have the full amount of water going through. And there is a reason for it. So if we look at the top of Sheldon, the water's coming over Sheldon. There's 2 areas like that I'm sure you're aware of, because they do go into wetlands at the top, just below Sheldon. And that's in a neighbour's yard up on Sheldon. And basically what's happened, when the new houses went in, there was fracking taking place. And it's very difficult to frack on ledge without getting any water or the change in the flow of water to take place. So what's happened? During that time, thousands of tons of fill, sand and gravel were brought in, and then the actual driveways were constructed. So there were 6 driveways going up there. One of those properties has 3 acres of land, the other have 1.5 each. And now what happens, the water comes down because these houses have been positioned approximately 10 to 15 feet higher than what McIntyre is. It comes down there, and basically my interpretation of what's happened is that the water comes to the side of the driveways, can't go, goes down to ledge, and then comes under the road onto my property. I beg your pardon, onto my property, on our property. That's my wife sitting in the back of the room here. Now, that pond now doesn't exist anymore. There's no water in it. The pipes, those big pipes, do nothing because the water's directed underneath the property to give this. This is a little video that'll take a couple of minutes to show you. We've never had water in the actual garage. I was pumping this with the snow shovel for 7.5 hours on the day that we had the rain. And we've had days throughout the 21 years we've been there where we've had more rain than that. We'd never had this before until the new properties went over the road. Now, that is going under my house. It's a big, big problem. Now, what we did, this is a video just to show you the proximity of it. And you can see my wife's taking one of the big 55-gallon drums back that we actually filled maybe 10 of those within that 7.5 hours with water, just to push it out and get it away from the house. And this is down the driveway. We have 2 driveways. One is at the top to the north end, one to the south end. This is the south end driveway. Just to show you, we now have a wetland, a new wetland on our property. And it comes underneath the driveway, and you can see it now progressing through my beautiful lawn that's been destroyed. And that's there, that's even there now. And in the snow, when it snows, the snow doesn't go there, it's just a big black blob. And this is the snow. And I'd just like to point something out, if you can see it. Can you see the bubbling where my hand is? Up there? That's the water coming underneath my driveway on my property. So now we have developed basically a wetland from the other side of the road. Now, my understanding is that the Conservation Commission or anybody else, you cannot take water from one area and put it onto your neighbour's property. I think that's Mass State regulations, I believe. That's what I've been told. I may be wrong, but I look for you to guidance. Now, I have a couple of questions. These are A&R properties, I believe. I don't understand what an approval not required property means. So were permits obtained for tree removal? Were permits obtained for storm water runoff? We now have wetlands from the other side of the road. We have massive damage to the house due to this occurrence. Now, I got some quotations in, and just to keep the water out of the house, we were quoted, and we got 5 of them from memory, Alan, $13,000 to $20,000 to put these internal drains in the house. I don't want them in the house. I want the water stopping to come into the house like it was before. And I don't think that's an unfair request. So, we're looking for guidance from the Conservation Commission and others as to where we go to help in this situation prior to more serious damage occurring to the house. We need to seek remedy to recurring water runoff run under problems at 44 McIntyre Road. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kettle.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Have we identified a violation? Like a violation, I mean, I guess that would be my first question.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Tim Smith. I actually have a question, and it's actually relevant to the question you just asked. So, the gentleman referenced a pond that used to exist but has now dried up. Mr. Kettle, can you elaborate on that? How large is the pond? Did it have standing water? Did it have standing water all year long, and now it's dry, is what you're telling us?
Well, yes, sir. No, it wasn't there all the time. It was only when we got rain, the water would actually go down McIntyre on the right-hand side of McIntyre and actually form a little pond, sometimes big, and it would overflow onto the road. And the DPW used to come up and they'd clean it off for us, and in the winter they'd take the ice away that was formed. And normally it's dry, but when you get rain, there's always a pond there. And they put the large pipes in to get that water away, to stop the pond. But now there's no water there for the pipes to drain. None of that water's coming down anymore, or very, very little bit, which you can see if you go up there today. And I think I showed Commissioner Donnelly that situation. Does that answer your question, sir?
It does. And so the Commission has jurisdiction over wetlands as defined in the Wetlands Protection Act. And I think what the next step would be to do a site visit and investigate if any wetlands were altered by the development, and if those altered wetland is contributing to the problem that Mr. Kettle has presented tonight. So my recommendation is to make a site visit and investigate the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I think that's where we'll move next, to identify.
Nick Erickson has his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Erickson.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Nicholas Erickson, Commissioner of Public Works for the City of Fitchburg. I just wanted to comment quickly on the pond that Mr. Kettle's discussing. So prior to us conducting the road paving on McIntyre Road, we did an evaluation of each of the cross culverts along its entire length. We did the same on Alpine Road and on Williams Road. And we replaced ones that were existing that had failed or otherwise were not functioning properly. So one larger one being down on Williams, right where it Williams where it meets Ashburn and Hill Road. And I believe the Commission reviewed the plan for that one. The McIntyre Road culvert that we replaced, it was an old clay pipe that had failed. It was cracked, mostly filled with sediments and debris. So it wasn't functioning properly at all, and I think that clogged culvert is the reason why that pond would form when there was rainfall events. And Mr. Kettle's absolutely right. DPW would come up, they do their best to clear out the pipe and remove the water accumulation or ice accumulation from the roadway. And it would be good for a little while, and then we'd have to come back and do it next time it got clogged up or frozen. So ahead of the road paving work, we replaced that pipe with the 2 larger pipes that Mr. Kettle showed in the photographs. And that's functioning properly if any water ends up on the upstream end of that pipe. So I'm not up there verifying how much water accumulates on the upstream end of that culvert very often. I take a ride up there occasionally just to check on the condition of the pavement and whatnot. So certainly I would trust Mr. Kettle's assessment of the situation with regards to the lack of water there right now. That's all I had. If you have any other specific questions for me, Mr. Kettle, or members of the commission, happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Erickson. The whole point of this really is that the water hasn't been there for 21 years since we've been there. A new development went over the road. Now we have water that we've never seen before. And, Don Lassila, or Don Lassila, I believe some of you know him. He's got the 9-hole golf course. Yeah, Lassila. He told me that in the 1965s, 1970s, him and his brother used to ride up and down McIntyre and jump over the ledge that was there because it was just a dirt road. And I believe that ledge is to blame for what's happened because everything now has stopped from coming down the right side, hitting the ledge and going underneath the properties onto ours. That's my understanding. So,
Thank you, Mr. Kettle.
Thank
so
you.
what we can do is perform a site visit and identify any violations of the Wetlands Protection Act and move forward from there.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioners.
Madam Chair, could I ask Nick a question?
Please.
One of the questions posed was, is it necessary to have a stormwater analysis performed on the development of 9 acres? And that question is on the floor. Did they need to handle stormwater in the development of 5, 6 house lots and 9 acres?
So in this case, Commissioner Donnelly, approval not required subdivision. And that circumvents or bypasses the planning board approval process, which means these house lots are built and sold off individually without requiring approval from the planning board. So there was no real formal opportunity for us to request a stormwater permit for these houses. In the state of Massachusetts, stormwater regulations don't typically apply to residential developments with development of a single house lot. So there was nothing required on the city's end as far as a stormwater management permit goes. That being said, what is required is a driveway permit for each of these houses. And there was a gentleman named Josh Olson who built several of the houses, but I don't believe it was all of them along McIntyre and Williams Road. And he did request or apply for driveway permits for, I believe, some of them, but I don't recall reviewing driveway permits for all of the properties along McIntyre Road. So it seems to me that a few of them, particularly on the side of the road that Mr. Kettle's concerned about, might have been unpermitted driveways. And I do recall a situation with a paving contractor that was blocking the road, gave one of my inspectors a hard time for asking him to move his equipment. And then we realized that the driveways hadn't been permitted. I went back and forth with the owner of that paving company a few times requesting those permits and never got them. Unfortunately, DPW doesn't have an enforcement mechanism really, aside from sending strongly worded letters. And really that's not effective in most cases. So there wasn't any follow-up to the lack of a driveway permit for those properties that don't have them. So I think what needs to be done is some sort of analysis to figure out a remedy here. And I guess the question is, who should perform that analysis, or who should be responsible for that analysis? Is it the developer? Is it the city by some sort of negligence? Is it on Mr. Kettle to do that? I guess that's what we kind of need to determine with this evaluation, this effort here.
Could you help me understand where I come up with clearing of a half an acre plus or minus warranted or triggered a stormwater runoff plan? Where would I get that idea?
Disturbing 20,000 feet or more of land in the city of Fitchburg per our Wetlands Protection Ordinance requires a submission to the Conservation Commission. An acre is 43,560 square feet, so half an acre is larger than that 20,000 square foot threshold, and would require a submission to this commission. So I guess we have to take a hard look at exactly how much land was cleared for each of these lots.
Well, 9 acres is more than a half an acre, so we don't have to look too far.
They're taken per each house lot, not in aggregate. So for a single house lot, if 20,000 square feet or more is being disturbed, it would have triggered a submission to this commission back then. And keep in mind, these houses were built back in the 2019, 2020 timeframe, I believe.
That's about right.
I'm not sure the city's stormwater ordinance had actually been finalized and put into effect at that time. So we're relying entirely on the Wetlands Protection Ordinance, which has that 20,000 square foot trigger in it. So we have to look at how much was clear cut for each of these house lots that were subdivided per the A&R plan.
Commissioner Erickson, Commissioner Donnelly, your question. Each lot is an acre and a half, so they're 66,000 square feet, which is 3 times the size of the 20.
Was all of the acreage of all the square footage of the lot cleared, or just a portion?
Or virtually the whole lot, especially when you get to the top 2 at the top, and that's when we started talking to the Conservation Commission about the trees that had been taken away. And I would say that 60 to 70% of the existing lots were cleared. So if you take 60 to 70% of that total area, it's still way above 20,000 square feet. Way above 20,000 square feet.
So it didn't require Conservation Commission an order of conditions, and it was a approval not required lot. But the Fitchburg Wetlands Ordinance covers clearing 20,000 square feet. And correct me if I'm wrong, the building permit is issued once all criteria have been satisfied. That's our trigger mechanism, the building department. And so we would not have known, nor given the directive to perform a sewer assessment
Well, not sewer.
unless we got notified, right?
I'm looking at I think 21 Mass GIS aerial, and of the houses, if right after they were constructed or during construction, and I wouldn't say that all of the backyards of those houses on the northerly side of McIntyre were all completely cleared.
No, well, 1/3 of an acre and a half is 20,000 square feet. So if they cleared 1/3 of their lot, that would trigger stormwater assessment. But we're not going to know unless somebody tells us, and it goes through building, and the building permit is issued or not issued without Conservation Commission oversight. Yeah, I bet. Well, that's looking back. Let's get out there and take a hard look and get some relief.
Okay, sorry it took a little bit longer.
Thank you.
But
Mr.
thank you
Kettle.
all.
Thank you, Mr. Kettle. Okay, thank you for your patience as we jump back into our agenda. Let's start with the notice of intent for Emmanuel Lutheran Church. We've already received their abutter notification cards.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40, the Fitchburg Conservation Commission will open the hearing for notice of intent, Emmanuel Lutheran Church, 1200 John Fitch Highway, proposed single-family dwelling. So we did accept the minutes from the site visit where, and we have, speaking to the notice.
Before you get, just making, for the record, Mr. Donnelly has left this meeting
thank
for
you.
the potential conflict of interest, but we still have a quorum.
Okay.
And.
You have copies?
Yeah, I do have copies.
Thank you.
Did you pass to Joyce and? That is the. Thank you. Yeah. Very top one, Joyce.
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Yep, that's it. Wes Fliss. Wesley Fliss. Of the Templeton Flisses. We've known him for a year.
For the record, Wesley Fliss, Haley Ward.
Thank you.
So as the chairwoman stated, that we had a site walk a couple weeks ago with the commission. There were some areas that the commission wanted us to take a look at, have Matt Morrow take a look at for possible wetlands after walking the property with the commission. And so Matt had gone out there, flagged a couple different areas, one being an area that that I think both he and Tim Smith and Dr. Baker looked at, even with regards to the soils, that there were soils, I think, kind of, it's tough to tell right now because of the season, but there's an area closer to the culvert that we showed down toward John Fitch Highway that is really an area that most likely is a wetland. And so we point that out on the lower right-hand side of the screen that you see here in front of you. And it would lead down toward that drop inlet that's adjacent to the retaining wall. There was another area that was the man-made drainage channel that leads from the parking lot down toward this swale along John Fitch Highway. That's there was some question about whether or not that was a wetland or how that fell within the jurisdiction of the commission. And so what we agreed to do is flag that as a non-mass jurisdictional wetland at this point, show the 20-foot no-touch buffer that the city has, also the 25-foot no-build zone with that also. And then as part of that no-touch zone, there was a request by the commission that some kind of monumentation be put along that 20-foot no-touch zone such that it's delineated for the homeowner in the future that that area is not supposed to be disturbed between that and the existing drainage channel. And so that's what we're showing there on the plan. Is we're showing right now a boulder wall or delineation there. And we do show it as or equal. I know in the past the commission's used a few different ways to delineate that 20-foot no-touch zone. And so we want to, I guess, kind of leave that flexibility if the applicant chooses to use the monuments that the commission has allowed in the past to, and to see which one would be easier to create that visual barrier there for the future homeowner. We did slide the house up a little bit to the north, about 15 feet or so, closer to the northerly property line. This allowed us to create some more space on the southerly side to fit in the proposed detention basin out of the 20-foot no-build zone. We do show grading on the back of the property up to that 20-foot no-build zone where it's field now, it'll be lawn afterwards. And anything out of that, really the 20-foot no-touch zone will be a lawn area or even some of the field area like it is now or in the northerly corner there. We feel that the proposal that's in front of the commission is, I think, what the commission members were asking for at that site walk. I think it meets what the commission members and Tim were looking for from a standpoint of protecting that drainage channel that has some wetland plant species in there now to allow that to continue to operate in the way it is. One thing we do ask, and we talked about on the site walk, is that drainage channel still be allowed to be maintained if any silt gets built up there, or anything that stops it from being conveying the stormwater in the manner that it does now, that the landowner or the church has the ability to continue to maintain that, such as there's no blockage within that drainage channel, so that it would negatively impact their parking lot to the north of the drainage channel. I do want to point out that, so I do show, just on the lower left-hand corner, adjacent to the basin, because of the way so there's an existing sewer main that runs through the property. It's the ideal place to connect the sewer service. We do show a temporary disturbance in that 20-foot no touch zone for the sewer service. So they would do a minor trench to get that sewer service in, and then restore that trench and make sure that it goes back to a field as it is now. But because of where the sewer inverts are, the sewer elevations are within that sewer run, and where the sewer ideally would want to come out of this house, it would make sense to tie in the sewer in that location there, and then also not to negatively impact the detention basin. And so that was one thing I did want to point out to the commission. Like I said, after the construction is completed, that will go back to what it is now, really that field meadow area, and use that as a drainage conveyance channel. So I'm not sure if any of the commission members have questions or comments.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Yes.
I just one real quick question. So out in the field west, we moved some stakes around.
Yep.
Is the delineation shown on the plan consistent with where the stakes were moved to?
Correct. And so what I did is I left those stakes where they were. Matt went out and looked at where the stakes were. He didn't have an issue where the stake locations were. He threw a couple extra flags intermittently, because I know obviously the stakes were spaced, 20, 25 feet apart in a couple locations. So I think he threw 1 or 2 flags down. And then the lower area where we show it as being an actual mass wetland, jurisdictional wetland, he did throw, I think, 5 or 6 other flags down in that location along the swale along John Fitch Highway. But yes, the stakes that we put in the ground during that site walk, Matt did verify those, and he was comfortable with the locations of those.
Very good. Thank you.
And Tim, and there were a couple areas that he thought he could move it a couple feet here and there, but it didn't. A couple feet, in our favor, but at that point it didn't really matter. We left it the way we staked it because we don't want to have any conflicts, I guess, with regards to that. It didn't really make much of a difference that a couple feet here and there.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, I had a
Morrow
question.
is on the call, and there's at least one neighbor, I know, Beth Salamino.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's open the floor for public comment.
I think one of the commission members had a...
Would anyone like to speak in favor of or against this hearing, or would like to request more information? Please state your name and address for the record. Do we have anybody in person who, please, okay, come on up here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Sultan. I actually have the house across the street from this lot. So I guess my concern is when I was at this last meeting, you stated there was no wetlands there, correct?
Yep. And
Tested the soil, there was no wetland. Now, tonight, you're telling me there are wetlands there. Is that what I'm understanding?
we are agreeing to show non-mass jurisdictional wetlands after the site walk because of the site conditions. We can't provide enough information right now to contradict the request. We can come later on to possibly this summer with an NRAD to contradict the wetlands that we're showing there, the non-mass jurisdictionals. But right now we're not going to dispute that because we're at this point trying to move the project forward. So
Okay, so I guess my main concern as a property owner is the bottom of that road, which I'm sure you noticed when you went there, all that, it's all cracked, the whole road. So water settles there now. Once he starts digging, disturbs the sewer line, which you're going to go through the wetland to do that, correct?
No.
Temporarily?
Nope, not
Or
through the
no?
wetlands.
Okay, I misunderstood that. But my point is, I have water problems there. So I have this man in front of me who just had houses put in, and now he has water in his basement. Well, my basement has been dry for 30 years. I've lived there.
Yep. And so when we actually walked the property, we did take a look at where your house is in relation to what we're proposing. And I know the commission members took a look at that also. We are on the opposite side of the street. The stormwater that goes from your property is in a different direction. The stormwater that goes in this property goes in the complete opposite direction. And part of the design that we're required to have by Nick Erickson, who I know is on the call also, was to put in this detention basin to alleviate some of the concerns that I know the previous gentleman really is having. And so that's, I know Mr. Erickson talked about that briefly, is that we are under a new set of regulations that the city has, and that's why we're required to put in that small detention basin on the lower side there from a standpoint of, runoff mitigation.
So you're telling me I'm not going to have more water at the bottom of the hill?
The water from this property does not go toward the road, or it doesn't even go toward your property. We're going in a complete
Well,
different
not my
direction.
property. I'm talking about the bottom, where we
Yep.
all have to stop and get off our road.
Yep, it doesn't go out into the street. All the grades go toward the lower right-hand corner in the screen there, which is that drop inlet adjacent to the driveway to the Emmanuel Lutheran Church. So all the runoff goes in that direction there. And we provided calculations to Nick Erickson to show that we're not increasing the water to that catch basin there. And so there is some review on this one, which there wasn't, I think, and I can understand your nervousness because the previous presenter obviously showed what worst case if something doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so that's why there are regulations now that the city has to prevent those things. So.
Okay. I mean, that's my main concern, and the concern is the bottom of the road, because it isn't just me that's affected, it's everybody coming down to leave in the mornings when there's, a foot of water at the bottom of the road, and that road is repaired almost yearly because it's cracked in potholes, and so that's a concern for basically everybody in the neighborhood, quite honestly. So, and then what is, if something does happen, who's going to take care of it? That's my concern. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sultan.
And Ms. Solomito had her hand raised, so.
Mrs. Solomito?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, you can now.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I was listening to the person that spoke earlier too, and I'm looking at the driveway here. And a lot of what he was saying about the driveways up on McIntyre were after they were put in, the water was forced to go in a different way and it came across the street. And I think that's what the people on Will Thompson are thinking, that the driveway and the housing, even though the water doesn't go that way now, when you build, and you probably will have to blast because of the ledge that's there, it will go across the street. And right now, I think, does this culvert at the bottom down towards John Fitch go under the road and then into the pond? Or does it just go into the sewer?
No, there's a culvert underneath, Beth, from
Will Thompson to John Fitch.
From 20 Will Thompson,
Okay.
underneath John Fitch Highway and into
That connects the two sides of the river there.
Brook.
Yes.
Yeah, into Flula Brook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then the river eventually goes down to the little pond, to Putz Pond.
Right.
Yeah, we're not touching that culvert. We're not touching that section there. And just so you know, so the driveway grading is proposed to continue the water flow in the direction that it does now, where it stays on the property and then toward that drop inlet at the driveway into the church. And so that was one of the things, is we're required to force our driveway runoff into that detention basin.
Okay, so you've already addressed that
And
concern.
that's what, yes, exactly. So the high point in the street that's currently along Will Thompson Way, along the right-hand side, basically the backside of the property that the city owns, is going to maintain, is going to stay there, and all the water that currently on this property goes toward that catch basin or that drop inlet next to the driveway for Emmanuel Lutheran Church, and that's going to continue to do that after this project.
Okay, and also the buffer zone. It's going to be 25 feet on that lot from the beginning to the end, or is it in just behind the house, or?
No, so there's a 20-foot buffer, 20-foot no-touch buffer that's required by the city, and so we're providing that.
No build, to be correct, right?
Well, the
25
no build is no
20
structure.
Yeah.
No, and so we're not in that 25-foot no structure zone, but we are doing some grading within that 25-foot no structure, no build zone, yes.
Okay. And those boulders that are going down, well, they're not the little chain link thing. That's just there as,
It's to provide a physical monumentation of that 20-foot no-touch zone so that the future homeowner will know that's the limit of where they should be disturbing.
all right, all
So
right.
the limit of
That
where they
makes
should
sense.
have their lawn.
Right. I have that across the street from me here.
The commission
They
has
have
a standard
the-
condition now, right? How you would handle that? Is that?
Well, I think that's worthy of discussion later, is that what the commission wants?
That was my question. I have a
And
question.
what
As soon as
distance on
Mrs.
center?
Solomito's done, yeah.
That's okay, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I did have a question about that barrier. But do we have any other?
Barrier would, I'm not seeing any other hands raised unless Matt has something to say.
Mr. Morrow, do you have anything you wanted to add? Good evening, Mr. Morrow. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Oops, sorry, I think I clicked, oh, there you go. You should.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep,
Yes.
now we can, Matt.
At this point, no, I have nothing to add at this point. I think Wesley covered it okay.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no more from the public. Let's turn to the commission. Do we have any commissioners that have questions that they would like to direct to Mr. Fliss?
I do.
Go ahead, Dr. Baker.
So, Mr. Fliss mentioned something about a sewer line. I don't see in the plan that is appearing right now on the screen any indication of where that sewer line is. Am I missing something?
Yeah, it shows.
There's a dark line running from the side of the house with the dimension 24 on the, yeah.
Who has the?
I do. Yep.
Yeah, just scooch
See
a
that
little
dark
bit.
dash line right there that goes just straight down the screen? Kind of on the right-hand side of the house, comes into the.
Oh, the dashed line. Yep. Could you advance the?
And it just goes straight down.
Down so I can see where it goes.
Yeah.
And there's an existing sewer main that runs underneath,
That's it.
and we're just tying
I
right
see.
into
So
that.
It's labeled at the bottom there.
Yeah, with an
guess.
invert elevation, yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Like I said, once it's installed, they'll restore, they'll restore that property back to where it's supposed to be. And
It's not exactly intuitive, Joyce, trust me, trying to
Yeah,
figure it out.
It is.
which way am I going? Yeah.
Are there any more commissioners that have a question or comment? Joyce, go ahead. Commissioner Jacobs?
Wes, thank you very much for updating the plans. I just have a couple of questions. When you say boulders or equal to, are you leaning
I know there
towards
was-
either one or the other?
there was a lot of conversation about, because I think you guys had mentioned, I want to say there was a few different ways you've done it in the past.
Yeah, there were granite pillars that are installed that we did it at another
Right.
applicant. But we also want to make sure that when you do that, and we will put
You have
in
the
the
little sign, right?
perpetual conditions that somehow or other it has to, what memorializes it is, there's verbiage somewhere that has to be attached to that monument or those stones that are going to say, and it'll be in the, resource area, no alterations.
Do you guys have a
something
little
similar.
placard? I know some of the communities
Yeah,
have.
we
the
do. We
little-
have a box of them in the office.
And that's fine. Whatever we put out there, we'll make sure we have the little placards on there. We don't have an issue with that.
Okay. Beyond where you're showing the stone now, I'd like to offer that we also memorialize that 25-foot no build, at least in 2 locations on the church side. When you get to, you see the 25-foot no build buffer there in 2 locations so that someone's not going to come down into the wetlands and alter that, now that we've marked that off as a no-build area.
Right there on the screen.
Yeah, where it says 25 foot, so as you go across, we could put
we would
one
wanna-
marker there.
We would want to mark the 20-foot, right, though, because the 25-foot, they could technically put a...
I would say 25 foot, because it says no build, they're not going to be able to do anything anyway.
If you look at the definition, no build, it's no build or no structure. It's really no building or no structure. The way the regulation is written, the no disturb zone is the area that they
All
can't
right, so we should do it at the 20 foot.
And that's right.
And I'd like to see 2 at least in that, because that's a fairly long area, so if
Yeah,
we
that's a
put
little-
one
yeah.
where, and we'll go over the plan so that the final plans indicate that, so you can put one where your arrow is right now, where it says 25 foot no build, and then come down towards the driveway again on that same plane and put in the 20 foot buffer mark there also, so that we're delineating that no buffer. And we will include in the perennial conditions that they, as we talked about, they can mow it or clean it up to twice a year.
Okay.
So that that can be maintained, both the drainage that comes down from above and
And this area there. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Drainage basin will need to be maintained as it was originally designed. That'll be in the order of condition.
And so we did provide a maintenance schedule for that basin.
Okay?
And so we did, when I sent over the calculations to Nick, I also included a maintenance schedule with that also. And I know in the past, the commission has just included that as part of the order. I'm not sure if that's something that you would do again or just reference the drainage calculations.
Well, Nick is here. I know he sent me an email toward the end of the day when he sent an email toward the end of the day saying that because of the winter conditions and the storm damage.
Yeah, he's
and
busy.
cleanup,
Yeah, I know
he hasn't had a chance to really review,
Understandable, yeah.
nor he or Jeff, the calculations that you sent him.
Yep.
So, I know, do you want to hear from Nick?
Sure.
You still with us, Nick?
Yep, I am. So I took a really quick look at this afternoon. I'm fairly comfortable with everything that's shown. I would like another day or so to go through the actual calculations and just make sure everything's in order. But I expect to have some time to do that by the end of the week. So assuming that everything checks out, I can just send an email to Mike and Mr. Fliss and let them know that everything's okay. And if I have any other questions, I'll email the two and get them clarified. But just from a 1,000-foot view, everything looks good so far.
Best send it to my Gmail account, Nick, because they're going to turn mine off, okay?
All right.
Wes, can we also put a marker, let's say on the plan, as we, in and about where the mark is, the elevation mark for the 490, which is just near the detention basin, that we're going to instruct as part of a condition that should be marked also as an area that there are no alterations to be made. It's going to be in the order of conditions, but there will also be
Well, it's going to be a lawn,
up to,
so anything out of the 20-foot no touch, we have no problem.
but there,
Anything within the 20-foot no touch to the wetland, we have no problem.
yes, but now I'm talking about around the
Basin?
detention basin.
Well, they should be allowed to plant if they, if they plant if they want to, or up on the top there, or if they want to
But we
landscape.
talked about when we were there that the same thing. They should only be able to maintain that a couple of times a year just to keep the overgrowth.
Well, between the 486 and the 490,
Yeah,
it's going to be lawn.
yes,
So they should be able to mow it when they mow their lawn. That should be grass.
okay.
And so they should be able to mow that as their grass is really what it is. It serves no other purpose other than just lawn at that point. There's no, the basin part of it's 486 to 484. That's the basin part. That's usually a couple times a year they would maintain it and allow that to grow a little more wild. But anything above it doesn't serve any purpose from a standpoint of drainage.
Okay,
And so I would ask that to be just lawn, so they can maintain it as regular lawn, so it doesn't look unkept.
so how do we let the potential homeowner that's going to take over this lot know that, cannot be altered in any way. Well, I mean, it's going to be in the order of condition that the drainage basin shall be maintained as originally designed.
Correct. And that's where,
Are we comfortable that that's enough?
and the maintenance plan is going to be attached, it can be attached to it too, so they know what they're supposed to be doing for the maintenance of the basin.
Okay.
But that part that you're talking about is the lawn. That's part of the lawn, has nothing to do with the basin itself.
Joyce, I hear what you're saying, though. We had another project where the homeowner brought a lot of fill into it and filled the detention basin to plant a garden. So a lot of folks look at it and say, I got a hole on my property. But that detention basin is going to be vital to prevent the flooding that the neighbors are concerned about. And so it does need to be protected in perpetuity, and it needs to be maintained. The only place that they should have any monumentation is at the no disturb zone, and that's outside of that no disturb zone. But we can put a perpetual condition that says that that detention basin should remain, and that the maintenance plan should be adhered to.
So, Tim, can we get an agreement as to what can be considered the detention basin and what isn't? Would it be the 486?
Yeah, 486 is the contour of the basin.
Okay, that seems reasonable. Plus the spillway.
Correct.
So that should be clarified within the order of conditions, I think.
Detention basin and spillway, Dr. Baker?
Yeah, and as designated by the 486 topographical line on this plan, which of course could be reestablished with a survey if you're wondering where it was, but also you can just tell because the slope will drop off there.
Right.
And Wes, I don't know how, I know this is all going to come with the lot, but as Tim talked about, a lot of people don't read a lot of that stuff, and they think, they've got a depression in their yard, and they want to fill it in and plant a garden, and we don't want that to happen. So I'm just trying to figure out what's the best way to make sure that the information is relayed to the new owner.
No matter what we're talking about, basins or backyards that are close to wetlands, right? If the homeowner doesn't know on top from day one, a lot of times you have issues, right? So it could be a matter of just even filling wetlands. So I think, making sure it's in the deed and then making sure that's always forwarded in the deed.
Conveyed, okay.
And a lot of times it's going to, the order condition is going to show up when they do the title research every time they sell this property. So
yep.
It's usually a red flag if there's an open order, or these attachments. So the property owner should be aware of it.
Okay.
And to be fair, this is a pretty darn visible site, right?
Yeah, if they fill it in, somebody's going to see it, exactly.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. Who's going to be responsible for the maintenance plan? The homeowner or the church? Okay. Second, you mentioned having to build a trench to get into the sewer.
So when they put the sewer in, they'll put a small trench in, lay the sewer service, fill it up, and then reseed over it, and then...
Are you giving us some information about how you're reseeding that and what you're doing in that, or some specifics?
If you want us to put a certain type of mix down, we could put a certain type of mix down. It's...
Okay, and then lastly...
to be honest with you, because they're not going to mow it as often, the rest of that area, it's going to overtake it like it has already.
And then lastly, on that visual barrier, perhaps you can elaborate. I thought that I heard you say that you were going to wait until the landowner
Our initial thought was to do boulders. I think Joyce had brought it up in the site walk. You could put a row of boulders out there. It's not extremely obtrusive from a visual standpoint. It's going to fit, I think, into the natural look of that site. I think it's probably a little cheaper than other than the granite post. I think the granite post is probably a little more expensive too than boulders. I know there was some rock out there already on the site in a couple of the different areas, so they might be able to use some of the natural rock that's out there too to make this work.
But did you say that you were going to wait until the homeowner and let the homeowner decide?
I wanted, I guess, give the contractor the ability, if you guys are okay with granite post and they want to use the granite post, then have them use the granite post. Or if they're okay with the rock wall, then use a rock wall.
I think if a contractor is going to have access to boulders,
I think, honestly, the boulders are probably the way they're going to go.
Yeah,
And that's
I
why
think
we
that
show the
makes more
boulders. And that's
sense.
what we wanted to, if they don't have enough boulders and, but if they build it and boulders are more expensive for some reason than granite, then maybe they'd want to do granite. I just don't want to have to come back here to ask you for granite. I'd rather have them have the few options that you've allowed in the past. That's all.
I just wanted to make sure that it happens.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we want to make sure it happens too, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Do I have commissioners with any more questions? Hearing no more from the public, the chair closes the hearing for notice of intent. Emmanuel Lutheran Church, 1200 John Fitch Highway, proposed single-family dwelling. Do we have a motion and a second to accept the notice of intent pending review by Commissioner Erickson of the,
I would say to issue an order of conditions pending a satisfactory review by the DPW commissioner of the drainage calculations that he got yesterday.
So, Madam Chair, I would make that motion with the approval of Commissioner Erickson, with our standard conditions that normally apply, plus I would like to see perpetual conditions that, one, the drainage basin shall be maintained as originally designed and to include the spillway and all surrounding area up to the 486 feet elevation as one. Number two, the area surrounding the drainage basin and the drainage ditch can be cleaned and mowed no more than twice a year. Perpetual condition number three, permanent markers, either boulders or barriers, to be installed along the east boundary, which is shown here, to include placards indicating no alteration area. And number four would be that we're also going to delineate the 20-foot no disturb at least in two areas along the no buffer at the bottom of the church along the John Fitch Highway area. Wes, are you clear? We're looking at that? Okay. And that's all I have there. And Mike, I'll work with you on those for the final wording if we have to.
All right.
all right, so we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Bro?
Aye. Commissioner Erickson, thanks for finishing up the analysis on the site, and Wes, thanks for updating the plan based on what we reflected when we walked out the site together. I also support the additional conditions of my fellow commissioners here tonight. So yeah, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Satterfield? I'm going to abstain from this one because I wasn't able to make the site visit. So the motion passes.
Thank you.
That's four.
Yeah, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Fliss.
Thanks, Wes.
Tracy, before you go on, do you want to see your phone, John Barrett?
I was going to grab
some time.
Donald.
Oh, right,
Is
okay.
he there?
Oh, okay. Hey, John, are you still around?
I am, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Well, hold on till we get people back. You have to retrieve Mr. Donnelly.
Okay.
Mike, are you talking to John Barrett?
Yeah.
All right, but there's nothing
let's
to
see.
display, so I need to step away.
I think he's just a quick update, but yeah,
All
you do.
right, so Tracy, you let me know if I'm controlling anything here, if I need to step away. But
I don't think there's anything to show.
We're good.
Okay.
I think we're good. Okay, so we're going to jump, I think, it looks like we're going to jump around on the agenda again and hear from Mad River Solar with an update.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Madam Chairman?
Yep, we can, John.
Yes. This is John Barrett for Mad River. Thank you for taking us. I think I can make this pretty quick. We have engaged an engineer, Tim Kuhn, who is revising the drainage calculations and the plan for the drainage, because it appears that the ultimate solution for the runoff that's occurring is to install the drainage that has to be revised because of the logging operation that occurred a year and a half ago or so. So we're working on that, and I believe they hope to have that plan in time for the next meeting in March. I think that, I'm not sure if the commission wants the plan to be reviewed, but I think the intention is that once that they've done the calculations, they would start doing the work as soon as they can. So I don't know if they'll be able to actually do the work until April, when things dry out a little bit, hopefully. But that's basically the report I have. I can also mention that Mike forwarded Commissioner Erickson's estimate on the
restoration
surety, I guess. And the only thing, I'm going to refer that to my client and have them review that and have the engineers take a look at that too. But the only thing I can comment is with respect to the restoration plan, I believe Alan felt that we were about 80% done already. So I'm not sure how that affects Nick's calculations, but I think his calculations are just based on what was proposed to be done. And Tom, I did speak with Tom briefly, and he said that if you'd like, we can produce the invoices for the work that's been done to date, and to show that what's happened. And the only other comment I'd make about, and I only got to briefly look it over, but it seemed as though Nick had a large number for removal of logs and slash, and I think that might apply to the whole area of the logging operation, not to the restoration plan. But that's just a brief observation on my part. I don't know. Maybe it only is for the restoration area.
So, Attorney Barrett, I can address that. This is Nick Erickson. So those numbers were based on the restoration plan exclusively. So there were some numbers in a table in that restoration plan. I don't have it in front of me. I want to say it's table 1. And they had different acreages for different components of the project. So I used those to guide my calculations. I did not assume that it was 80% complete. So that is for the entire amount of restoration work that's described in the plan. And the plan itself lacks detail in some areas, so I had to make some assumptions. If more details can be provided, that number can be refined a little bit further. So any other questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, okay. I'll have them take a look at it if you don't mind, Madam Chair. I'll have them look at it and evaluate it and talk to Commissioner Erickson about if there's any issues we have to try to coordinate or resolve, and then get back to you, I guess, at the next meeting.
Okay. which would be March 1st.
March 1st, not February 29th, right?
Attorney Barrett, if you wouldn't mind, as feedback becomes available, feel free to just email it over to me, and we can kind of go back and forth and get this all worked out ahead of the next meeting.
Yep, very good, Nick. Thank you. We'll do that.
Thank you. Okay.
So I don't know if the commission has anything else, but we're mindful of the issues there, and we did communicate with one of the neighbors who had a wet basement because of a recent rainstorm I believe it was last Friday.
Yep.
So we're aware of it, and I think the solution ultimately is to get that drainage work done as quickly as we can.
Okay, thanks, John.
All right, thank you, folks. Have a good night.
Good night. Okay, let's jump back in to the agenda under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40. The Fitchburg Conservation Commission will open the hearing for notice of intent Ridemore heavy-duty truck parts, 150 Benson Street, address the wetland violation.
Patrick, you want the last plan that you just submitted this evening?
Yeah, both.
Yeah, the very top one, Joyce.
Yep, we can start with that one.
Okay.
So, good evening, Patrick McCarty, McCarty Engineering, here again on behalf of Ridemore Heavy Truck Parts, 150 Benson Street. So we had a site walk with some of the members of the commission and Mr. Smith on the 14th. We started first at the bottom of the site where the violation occurred, and then we walked up to the rail trail where we could observe the top of the wetland resource area that feeds down to this. And there's been a continual problem with dumping down over the slope from who knows where it comes from, tires, buckets, various trash that Mr. Pomerleau agreed would be one of the conditions to go along with the restoration that was already proposed and discussed at the previous hearing. Second to that is the rail trails, obviously flat, and there's nice flat grass shoulders, and then it drops down quite a bit, I would estimate, at least 20 feet down to the resource area. There's a chain link fence on the abutter's property. If you're standing on the rail trail looking down at the resource area, there's a chain link fence on the right, and there's a chain link fence on the left at the Ridemore property, and so we also proposed to connect the dots with chain link fence to hopefully prevent future dumping, not to say someone can't pull a heave-ho and throw something over the fence, but at least we're going to get the area cleaned and hopefully discourage that. The third thing that we discussed was some kind of structural improvement to improve the quality of the runoff from the Ridemore site itself. We looked, and there's not any drainage system close to anything where the violation had occurred. And so what we've proposed is about 200 linear feet of a pea-stone diaphragm that would be located along the backside of the relocated concrete blocks as shown on the plan that's on the screen. When Mr. Pomerleau takes the blocks from where they currently are and puts them back, he can space them out so that they sufficiently block any traffic, but they also leave gaps in between the blocks so that the water would get into this pea-stone diaphragm that's 5 feet wide, 18 inches deep, wrapped in fabric with stone both below and above, so that we're promoting some infiltration of the runoff from the parts storage area into the ground, and it's protected from being filled by those blocks. It's also protected from vehicles driving it from the blocks, and it's up gradient of the resource area. So those are our three changes to the plan. So the pea-stone diaphragm is shown on the plan on the screen, and then our survey didn't extend far enough to show the cleanup and fencing work at the top of the site adjacent to the rail trail. So we've taken an aerial photo, identified the areas, and I guess the only caveat with this is the fence that's proposed is on the rail trail property, so we'd have to go to them and seek permission for the installation of the fence.
Joyce, I think if you scroll to the second page, That has the aerial with some notes on it about what Pat's talking about.
Yep,
Okay, yep.
there you go. So the top note there that's kind of closer to the building calls out cleaning up of all the trash that we discussed during the site walk, and the lower note points to the proposed fence line, and then explains that we'd have to get permission from them to actually install the fence.
Yep.
So we're hopeful that with those revisions, that the commission would vote to issue an order of conditions so that we can get ready to implement these corrections to the violation. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty. Let's open the floor for public comment. Would anyone like to speak in favor of or against this hearing, or would like to request more information? Please state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone in in-person attendance who, no, okay. Do we have anyone who is attending virtually that would like to comment? Or
That have their hand raised.
okay. Hearing none from the public, let's turn to the commission. Do we have any?
I got a question.
Commissioner
Is
Donald?
there any active dumping upstream? Any active dumping where you propose to put the fence?
So,
Is it all historic?
No, according to Mr. Parmalu, a couple times a year, he sends his employees down and fills a dumpster or two of trash.
There's 6 months the rail trail's been open. With that increased activity and increased eyes, do you anticipate continued dumping? It used to be out of sight, out of mind. It's no longer the case, is it? I have an
I
aversion
disagree,
to
Michael.
chain link fence in a resource area.
I
I
can't
think
speak
it-
directly to this stretch, but I've walked it half a dozen times since last March, when it was first, cleared or open. There's still dumping.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not-
sadly, it might actually make it easier, right? Because it's
What's a
more
rail
accessible.
trail? They walk. What do? Carry their bags right to left?
But they can drive down the
or they
trails.
drive
It's
their
wide
vehicles down it,
enough
too.
that you can
It's
back a
possible to
pickup
drive a
truck
vehicle
down it.
down.
Put the fence.
Thank you.
I just don't like fences in remote areas and too urban, that's all. But serve the purpose.
Well, it is black vinyl coated chain link that's proposed, so it's not as stark as just your conventional gray chain link fence.
It's costly, and I don't like spending
And as
money
the
that
note,
doesn't have to be spent.
as the note indicates, the Rail Trail Association has to okay that, because
Yes.
really it's their say-so.
Yeah,
So
and if for some
I'll-
reason they don't, and if you want to put that in as a condition, if for some reason they say, thanks for the offer, Mr. McCarty, but no, then we would come back to the commission and advise you of that and discuss something else.
I'll be
Also,
seeing some of those folks soon, this weekend.
You will be?
I will tomorrow, actually, one member.
Just don't bike on Friday, it's going to be really cold.
Also, Mr. McCarty, you're showing the fence right at the edge of the rail trail itself, and they may request that it be pushed back a little ways over to wherever it can be placed farther off the trail rather than, right on the edge of the trail surface, I would think.
Yeah, so as we discussed during the site walk, it's right at the top of the slope, which we're calling out on the note. So that bold black and white line is probably something left in the aerial. That's not the actual constructed trail. So it's,
I see.
I didn't honestly take a measurement when we were out there, but I would guess it's 6 or 8 feet off the edge of the trail. At least 6.
Yeah,
All right.
say 6 to 10.
Yeah, it's right at the top of the slope.
Legitimate question. Who's to say that a 6-foot black-coated chain link fence will stop illegal dumping? It may stop the location that they dump it down over the side, but if they're in there with a truck, it's even faster to leave it up top and scoot. So what you're doing is you're cutting off that resource area to pedestrian traffic, and if they want to get down there and cool off, I don't know, access to that resource area, I think, is significant, and blocking it is significant. And if it's going to stop, if it's going to guarantee the rubbish, all right, but if it's not going to guarantee the rubbish, they could dump it up top. I don't think we've gained.
But I don't think you're going to, if you saw this hill, you're not going to want to walk down there and put your feet in the water
You'd have
because
to
it's
be
pretty
on
steep.
your rock climbing gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty steep.
I've been there. I saw. We noticed it when we were called out there for the rail trail. We did a site walk for the rail trail, and we saw that before any of this. So I'm quite familiar with that area. It's just,
Yeah, so this is what was discussed during the site work a couple weeks ago was, everybody saw the dumping, saw the ugliness of what ended up in the resource area and saw the fence to their right and saw the fence to the left and said, why don't we connect the dots so that we try to, the good fences make good neighbors, right? We're trying to be a good neighbor to the resource area, so we're putting up a fence, so hopefully to discourage that type of activity.
I have a follow-up question. Does anyone, why didn't the fence go all the way across in the first place? Like when they were putting in, who put in the fence
It's not rail trail
originally?
fences, so on the left-hand side, it's a Ridemore fence. And on the right-hand side, it's whoever that abutter is.
Okay.
That's CJ's, yeah.
CJ's?
Oh, okay, so that's who put the fence in. Wasn't, the rail trail didn't
No.
put the fence in? Okay.
Madam
Mr.
Chair?
Smith, comment on this proposal?
Yeah, so I just have a few questions. So on the, for the P-stone diaphragm, how large of an area drains towards that P-stone diaphragm? And has Commissioner Erickson had an opportunity to review the engineering for that?
So no, probably not speaking for Commissioner Erickson because Justin just sent it at noontime today, I think, Mike, around
I'll find it
noontime,
on the
1
email.
o'clock. So I'd be honestly very surprised if he had the opportunity to review it. And as far as the area, I don't know that. Brian and Justin, Tim did the math on it, but it wasn't anything that was obviously modeled in HydroCAD and sized. It was, what can we implement along this edge where obviously the contours are heading in that direction? What can we do to try to catch and infiltrate some of the water?
So, and Patrick, you said that on the site visit, you said the surface is regrinds, or it's not blacktop, right?
Yeah, it's millings.
It's milling. So, and what's like the runoff coefficient for millings? Is it very pervious or impervious? Is there a lot of sheet flow?
There's some sheet flow because millings after time, when vehicles drive over it and over and over, just the heat of the tire starts to mash that back together into more of a solid surface.
Okay, and how large is can you comment about how large, is there a large area that's draining that in that direction? And right now we've got water coming in that direction, and you said it goes in between the boulders. Is there any erosion occurring or any signs that you do have?
It's heading towards the armored slope.
It's heading towards, so the armored slope's kind of holding it all together now,
Right.
preventing any erosion.
So Commissioner Christian and, I'm sorry, I forget who was with us, but we were talking as we were walking away at the end of the site walk, can we do something on site to improve stormwater? And there's no pipe and structure network there. So we looked at where the water was running and decided that really the solution we could implement short of a whole massive stormwater management undertaking would be to add this P-stone diaphragm at the top of slope. So any runoff that is going that direction has an opportunity to infiltrate before it runs over the riprap and down to the stream.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's probably just a good idea to have, if Commissioner Erickson is willing to do it, to have him do a review to determine how effective the design is.
I will definitely do that this week. Mike just sent me over the plans, and I'll take a look.
Okay.
Great. That's the only comments I had. Everything you've described, Patrick, is what we had discussed out in the field on our site visit. Yep, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else with comments? Okay, do we, were you expecting a vote tonight? Do you want to get started on, are you able to get started on this?
I'm
or-
fine. I don't, sorry, it's a long day.
I know, yeah.
So,
I'll take a
the
deep
weather's
breath.
crazy, right? We should have a foot of frost minimum right now, which we don't. It's crazy season. So, is he looking to start it tomorrow? No. Obviously, we want to make sure the commission's satisfied. Is he going to start once the commission approves, yes, absolutely. So if you want to wait till the March meeting, and I'll come back, we'll make sure that Commissioner Erickson's satisfied and everybody's satisfied, we can go from there. We're certainly not going to go after it tomorrow. Or if you wanted to, if as much as I'm sure you all love seeing me, and you could either vote tonight and with a condition that he reviews and approves it. However you want to do it is fine by us.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty.
I'd like to move that we issue the order of conditions as discussed, pending Commissioner Erickson's review.
Second that.
Thank you. Let me call the roll. Commissioner Bro?
Yeah, I'll agree. Aye.
Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Sailfield, aye, I agree. So the motion passes. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Jacobs, I apologize. You were on page 2.
Aye.
Sorry. Okay, so the motion passes pending review by Nick Erickson. Thank you, Mr. McCarty.
Thank
And
you all
you'll
very
keep us
much.
updated on
It
the
has
fence.
been a long
If you
day.
you just keep us updated on the fence.
Yes. Mike, if you have a contact at the rail trail that I should reach out to, or I
I
can
would
just
check
Google
with
it.
Larry or Amy of our office.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you all very much.
Have a nice evening, Mr. McCarty. Okay. So we're going forward.
My
Moving.
goodness, and it's before 8 o'clock.
I know. We're shooting for 8 o'clock, everybody. So let's, moving on. Under Massachusetts, did I close the last hearing? I'm sorry. Didn't close.
Well, you took a vote, so I'm
Okay,
assuming that.
that's intention to close. I'm sorry. It has been a long day.
Right, I'm sorry. On the agenda, it's listed as notice of intent for 291. I was expecting a notice of intent. Wes is here if there's any questions about it. We have a plan. I think it's in the folder under other stuff,
Yeah.
Joyce, but yeah, I don't, Wes, do.
We can do a quick status, and then we can...
Yeah, and then move on.
Okay.
So I know, obviously, the commission is looking to get this done quickly, as soon as we can. Between the last meeting and this meeting, we did send over the plan to have checked by, I think it was sent to Mike, the chairwoman, and I can't remember if it was sent to Tim also, maybe, just to have it looked at real quick before we submitted the notice of intent. By the time that was done and everything that was kind of going on, we didn't have a chance to get the filing completed in time for this meeting. I know Mike had a placeholder on the agenda, but by the time everything kind of got accomplished on your end and our end, we didn't have enough time to get the notification out to the abutters also. And so we just asked that we can be on for the March 1st meeting for an actual hearing. We'll get the notification out to the abutters. As Mike said, we did submit the plan. I think Jamie Rowe from our office will be, if you're okay with that, he'll send in the notice of intent to the state and send over a copy of the notice to Mike, and get that process rolling. But and then we can come back for an official hearing in March.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wes.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? Do you need anything for, I think the next item on the agenda had to do with our friend over on Ringe Road?
Is there any update since last month?
So the only thing I know is that they will be filing soon for the special permit for the earth removal. So they've been shut down by the building inspector, pending an earth removal permit.
Right.
For the special permit.
Wait a second. Before, are we, let's let Commissioner Christian recuse himself. So we can play this strictly according to oil.
Yeah, yep, I apologize.
Go ahead.
So the building inspector issued a cease and desist because there was no earth removal permit. And so the attorney, Mrs. Hamburg, and our office is working to put together the application for the special permit for the earth removal bylaw, so that she can be conforming again per the city regulations. So I know she's worked with this board and the planning board to take care of the other permits, but it came to our attention that the way the regulation is written, that she is not in conformance with the earth removal bylaw. And so we're going through that process now to get in front of the planning board for the special permit.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll be, I'm not sure, when's the planning board meeting? End of the month?
End of the month, 28th.
So if it comes in,
It's already really long.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So we'll be in, as soon as the planning board will take it, we'll be in front of the planning board. So they are working to solve that. Until they have that issue solved, they can't do any more work up on the property.
Okay,
As I understand it,
go ahead.
what they owe us is just monitoring the success of the wetland replication and the detention basin.
Correct.
We're monitoring those to see that they work.
Yeah.
You haven't tied into that detention basin, and that's where we are, Conscom, correct?
Correct. And they're continuing, obviously, they're up there all the time, taking a peek at making sure there's no erosion issues, but they can't do any further work until this item is taken care of.
Well,
All work is ceased, even,
They're not supposed to do any work up there that has
Okay.
earth removal involved with it until this is taken care of. They can take care of, if there's an erosion issue with the seeding they've already
Okay.
done with the basin, they can take care of that, yes.
I was just, yeah, that was, I mean, if something's our jurisdiction,
No, they'll take care of it if but that's not earth removal related,
correct. Okay.
but any of the big stuff that they're supposed to be doing at the end of the road, they can't
That
do.
wasn't our jurisdiction. That part wasn't our
just to-
jurisdiction.
They're going to tie in, and we need weather to monitor wetland replication and drainage pattern, drainage
Yes. Yep.
function.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
See you, Russ.
All right, so that's Woodland Estates. We're getting there. Commissioner Christian, welcome back. Lastly, under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40, the Fitchburg Conservation Commission will open the hearing for notice of intent, Platinum Development, LLC, 93 Gibson Road, driveway crossing and single-family dwelling in the buffer zone. Speaking to the notice of intent, we have
Mike Kurgowski.
Mr. Kurgowski.
I believe my engineer is on Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Popham.
I saw Mark's name earlier, and you're unmuted, Mark.
I have my
Hello, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Could I just give a little bit, because I'm not sure if you're aware of everything that happened before, so. Waiting for Michael. Like 1999 or so, there was an order of conditions, and prior to my time, I'm not sure whether Tim remembers, but that was issued for a single-family house here and that driveway crossing. I think that might be from the 99 plan. Order of conditions was issued, nothing ever happened with the lot. Order of conditions expires. 2005, they reapply. That might be the 05 plan. Got another order of conditions for the driveway crossing and the proposed house location. Got an extension of that order of conditions. Nothing happened. It languished. Property went into tax title. It was sold at a tax title auction by the city treasurer several years ago. I forget exactly which, and was acquired by a local person here. He actually, prior to just transferring this property to the current applicant, Mike, he asked for a certificate of compliance for both of those, and the kind of certificate of compliance where you check the box saying this is invalid because it expired, nothing ever happened. So that kind of cleared up the title for you, Mike. So we have a very similar application for a driveway crossing across an intermittent stream.
Thank you.
And that just as an example, I think was one of the previous plans. It's not the latest plan that Mr. Popham had submitted. That comes later on the list.
I only saw the older ones, Mike.
No, you see the bottom two, septic plan.
Yeah?
Oh, okay, that's the details. The one just above that. So, bingo.
There you go.
So to orient, okay, at the top is, no, I'm sorry, on the bottom left, yeah, so the southwest corner, there you see Gibson Road. And the driveway is pretty much in the same location as previous plans. You see that intermittent stream noted, and wetland 2, wetland 3.
In as much as the last time this came before the commission, and the commissioners are pretty much new, I'm not sure that there's a lot of significance to previously submitted plans. So a presentation on the existing plan to the current Conservation Commission members is quite in order.
Yeah, my engineer can best explain everything to you and answer any questions you have.
I had a question.
Sure.
Is this
Yeah,
the
basically-
1997 plan? Did
No,
something say
that's
1997?
the current plan that Mr. Popham prepared.
Yeah, yes, this is a current plan. I basically, Mike had me take a fresh look at this site. Quite honestly, I went into this project with him without having the benefit of any prior plans. So we took a fresh look at it, including starting from scratch on subsurface testing for the Title V system, as well as finding the optimum house location. There is, this lot does contain in the rear of it a fair amount of bedrock outcrop, so it benefited the site planning to take a good look at the superficial and subsurface conditions, as well as being cognizant of the wetland feature, swale or intermittent brook, as we call it, toward the front of the site. The driveway location, quite honestly, was selected partly because there's a slight opening in that stone wall in that vicinity already, and also it would involve less of an amount of fill to get a trafficable driveway across to the upland area of the site. And I think it showed on the prior plans that it was maybe another 80 feet or so toward in the northerly direction. So the intent was obviously to put the septic system where the septic system could best go, and then we determined the house location from that, as well as where there was any shallow ledge or outcrops on the site. That's what's necessitated us to have essentially the house and obviously the driveway within the 100-foot setback from that intermittent brook. Essentially, all the septic system per se, except for maybe 50 square feet of it, is actually beyond the 100-foot buffer. And the intent is to establish at least a 25-foot setback on all the site grading or filling work associated with the house construction. The only real, there's about 850 square feet of work within the 25-foot buffer zone, either side of the brook, necessary to actually get the driveway constructed and to allow the continued flow of that intermittent brook when it does flow with a nominal culvert sized underneath the center dip of the driveway.
Thank you, Mr. Popham.
You're welcome.
I think we need to have a site visit out there, and
Oh, one question, Mike.
Yes.
Did you have either the green cards or tonight? Oh,
Yeah, with
okay,
me.
good.
oh, good, thank you.
You want me to bring them up?
It's
or-
been a long
Yeah,
day.
sure, thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
don't know if Tim has any.
Mr. Smith, okay, so, thank you, Mr. Popham. Let's open the floor for public comment. Would anyone like to speak in favor of or against this hearing, or would like to request more information? Please state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one in person, do we have anyone on the attending via remote that would like to comment?
The only name I don't recognize is Haley Dorsey, and I'm not sure what item that person might be here
Haley
for.
Dorsey, what can we do for you tonight?
I don't see that name on the list of abutters.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really.
Hello, this is Jeffrey Dorsey, Haley's husband. We're actually the potential property buyers of this house, so we're just tuning in to kind of see how things are moving.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, do you have any comment?
Yes, I do actually. A few questions. So what is the width of the driveway crossing?
It's 14 feet wide. It's essentially 12 feet pavement width and probably a foot of crown or so, or graded area on either side.
Okay, and is the driveway going to be paved or gravel?
Mike, you can answer that one.
Paved. Yep.
Okay, how about, so are you filling, is there any adjacent bordering vegetated wetland adjacent to the intermittent stream?
I did not identify any.
So there's an intermittent stream and no adjacent BVW?
No. Okay. Not in my opinion. So
are you, which I'm not familiar with your background, are you a wetland scientist or civil engineer?
I'm a degreed environmental scientist.
Okay, you are. Okay.
Yeah.
With the crossing, I assume you're going to put a culvert, and what's the sizing of the culvert, and have you done drainage calcs to ensure that that culvert will be adequately sized, and does it follow the DEP culvert guidelines or the guidelines for stream crossings?
Well, I wouldn't call this a stream. It really is a swale, and I think at times it could be considered an intermittent brook. There's really, you can step in this thing and barely get your boots wet. It does have no real channel to it. It's forest litter, a few stones, and it's not a typical stream. Does not show up on any mappings as either, as an intermittent brook at all, or a wetland for that matter. But it does, there is a depression there, and at the time that I did field work, there is some water on it. So that's why I called it just what I called it, either a swale or intermittent brook.
Yeah, so we really need to make that determination, because so there's criteria in the Wetlands Protection Act for an intermittent stream. And if it meets that criteria, then it is a resource area, and then you need to comply with the requirements for altering a intermittent stream.
For what it's worth, there's a couple of photos of the stream, Joyce, that were taken from this morning. I mean, the snow melts, so yeah, there's water running.
Yeah,
I think the very last
it may be and it may be a swale. I don't know, but if we have to make that determination, because if it's a swale, then there aren't going to be any requirements. But if it's an intermittent stream, then it has to meet with the performance.
It's sideways and I can't rotate it, Mike.
Right, try another one. I think there's one that's labeled stream.
Yep, right
Yep.
here. Yep.
Yeah. That's looking upstream, I believe, and there's one, on the other side, 180 degrees. So obviously there's not much of a channel, like Mr. Popham was saying.
And so if there is a wetland resource area that's feeding the stream, then it's considered an intermittent stream, and it's protected. If upstream, however, it's just runoff from the surrounding area, then it's just a drainage ditch. And again, it's really critical that we make a determination if it is a drainage ditch or a stream, because a stream, they have to meet the performance standards. If it's just a drainage ditch, then they don't have to meet the performance standards. So it's looking at the stream itself. And so things we're looking at, if you look at the definition of an intermittent stream, it has to have a hydraulic flow of water, which partly through the year, which it looks like it has, and has to have a defined channel, and I can see how that would be in question. And then the next question is what's feeding it? Is there a pond or a bordering vegetated wetland, a gradient from it, or is it just drainage runoff from the surrounding area?
Nick, I see your hand. I think I saw your hand. Yep.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yep. Thank you very much. I agree with Tim's comments, and I just wanted to add that regardless of the classification, if we're designing this culvert crossing the right way, there should be some engineering calculations to support the selected size. I can't tell you the number of builders that I've seen in the city think they understand how water flows, put a 6-inch culvert underneath the driveway, and then are flabbergasted when the driveway overtops and it settles and the pavement deteriorates within a couple of years. So I think from a potential buyer's perspective, I would demand that engineering calculations be performed to make sure that you're putting the right size pipe in the ground. And that's not overly complicated. It's a pretty straightforward effort, but I think that's also something that would benefit the commission to see too. Just my recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson.
Tim, on your comments earlier, if there's a resource area further up gradient, you probably remember just a few months ago the commission was asked for a certificate of compliance for, I think it was like 877 High Rock Road, which is just, and so this is the same, if you want to call it watercourse, that was the reason for that order of conditions back, 30 years ago?
If it's the same watercourse, it's going to be an intermittent stream. There's a large area of BVW on that parcel that we issued the certificate of compliance for. So, and I'd also point out that it flows into a wetland. And so even if it was just a drainage ditch, if that drainage ditch were to, if you're going to work on the crossing and it was to have sediment or any way impact that wetland, then it would also be in the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. But I think the big thing is making that determination if it's a intermittent stream, because if it is the intermittent stream, right, they're going to have to do, they're going to have to replicate it, and they're going to have to meet the DEP guidelines for stream crossings.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Popham, did you have anything else to add?
No. I think you folks need to make that determination on this resource, because it has not been mapped at all as an intermittent stream. So if that determination needs to be determined, I would suggest that be done before the applicant does additional work to fine-tune that driveway crossing if so needed.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Thanks. I look forward to an on-site, if we could schedule that. And I don't want this question answered tonight, but I want you to think about it. Defend, your application said 80-foot disturbance, 80 square feet of disturbance, and that would be the driveway crossing, as far as I can tell. At a 14-foot wide driveway, divided into 80, you got so many linear feet along the driveway of disturbance. I want you to be able to defend that number in the application of 80 square feet of disturbance when we're on site, not tonight.
Actually, what I said was 850 square feet of disturbance within the 25-foot buffer zone to the brook. The 80 square feet had to do with the area, the wetted area of the swale or intermittent brook.
Land underwater.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And that's how it was checked off on the notice of intent.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Dr. Baker.
Seems to me that the onus is on the applicant to hire a wetland scientist to make the delineation. It's not on us. They need to have someone qualified make that delineation, and then after that we should have a site walk. It seems to me.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. How do you want to move forward with this? You want to get I agree with Dr. Baker. Typically, we don't make that determination. The applicant makes that determination, and you bring us a completed application that has all that in it. We don't, Mr. Smith will go and review what your wetland scientist gives you, and he represents the commission in our interests in that regard.
Okay.
So do you need more time before we schedule the site visit? You need more time to make these determinations.
Okay.
We can't tell you how much time you're going to need for that. Generally, we receive an application that's complete, and we make our determination. We'll go do a site visit, and we'll send our environmental consultant to look at it. Yeah. Do you have any more questions for us?
I think I'm good.
Okay. Do we want to continue? Can we have a motion to continue this to, at what point do you think you'll be able to get that information so that we can schedule our site visit?
I'll start working on that tomorrow, so I can, I can schedule that, and then I can follow up if that works. Just depending on, an environmental scientist's schedule to get the work done, then I can.
Well, this is not an environmental scientist. What we're looking for is a determination by a wetland scientist.
Okay.
There is a difference.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a difference, and this is protecting you and protecting, you're protecting yourself in this regard.
Okay.
Do you want to continue this to April? Do you want to continue this to March?
I would say March.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can we have a motion?
Motion to continue the meeting 30 days till March 1. Is that it?
Second.
And ask the applicant to notify us ahead of schedule if he will not be ready to meet that March meeting, in which case you'll ask for a 30-day continuance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Call the roll. Commissioner Bro? Do we still have Mark? Brian?
Thought we?
Yep. Yeah, I said aye. Sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Satterfield? Aye. Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
So we've approved continuing this hearing to the March 1st meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kurgowski.
Okay.
Mike and Mark, it's always the first Wednesday, so if it isn't Wednesday, March the 1st, it would be April 5th.
Okay.
You know,
Yep.
first Wednesday of that month,
All right.
in case you need more time. And I'll shoot you a note.
Okay,
Okay.
that sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, I think all that we have left is a recognition of the work that Mike O'Hara has done for the commission over
I
this.
forgot my name there.
Here, here.
My brain is just stopping. Okay, and over the last couple decades of, I don't want to embarrass you with the time.
It don't matter to me.
But
I know
official
all I am.
recognition that we acknowledge Mr. O'Hara's work and his time and consideration on behalf of the Conservation Commission.
Thank you, Mike. Are you thirsty?
Hey, is there a place open now, Michael? Because, sure, but let's see. Thank you. I appreciate your kind words.
No, thank you. We've
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's been a great pleasure working with you.
Thank you very
Likewise,
much,
Tim.
Mike.
Thanks, Mike. It's been an honor. Job well done.
yes.
Before you leave, there were 2 things approved tonight, and you have an actual quorum of folks to sign on.
Slocum.
Awesome.
Sorry. It's not like-
While you're signing, do you just want a quick update on 46 Sheldon? Mike and I worked on that over the past month. The file has been turned over to Mass DEP. And Mike, have you had a chance to get the scanned files to Mia that she asked for? Do you need me to come in and help you with that?
Because you had made a number of copies, or did you? So I'm
I
wondering-
didn't not, I have some copies, but not all, and they would prefer it in a scanned file. If I do it, I got to send her paper.
Okay.
Where we can do it on the photocopier, right? And send a scanner file.
Right, it'll
And just
feed it
run it
right.
through.
Yep.
So I can come in and do that if you show me how. You just got to tell me when is a good time. We only got a couple of days, or I could do it next week if you just show me how.
Let me get in touch with you.
Okay.
I'll take a look at her email and see just what you needed.
She wants the enforcement orders and the letters that we sent out. So there's 3 enforcement orders and the letters that went with it. She has all the addresses that we sent stuff to. I gave her that already in the timeline. So just the enforcement orders and the letters that went out.
Okay.
Okay.
Take a note of it.
And Joyce, who is she?
She is Mia McDonald. I'm sorry, Ralph. Our contact right now is Mia McDonald.
Central Regional Office in
Yeah,
Worcester.
in Worcester.
Is this the circuit rider?
She is our contact, and their office there will be taking over, trying to contact Mr. Adams and pursue whatever they can do with that.
That's DEP?
DEP, Mass DEP.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
DEP Central.
Yep.
Maya is the circuit rider for the...
She is. She's our contact and then sends it to where it needs to go to.
Can I get around?
Sign them both. You can't.
Thank you.
I did.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs.
It's not bad, so.
Before we close, I just wanted to bring to the Commission's attention Mark McNamara in the
Oh, right. Rain
DPW.
barrels.
Yes, and he's in the DPW department, and has he sent an email bringing to our attention that he wants to get started on the Great American Rain Barrel Program again for the spring, and asked if we wanted to be a part of it. He's going to be on the agenda for next month, but I just wanted it to bring it to everyone's attention that that's coming. So on that note. Once again, Michael, thank you.
You're welcome.
And can I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting of the February 1st, 2023?
Seconded.
And a second. Commissioner Bro?
Aye. Thanks again,
Commissioner-
Michael.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye. Thank you, Mike.
Commissioner Christian,
Aye. Thank you, Mike.
Commissioner Donnelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs.
Yes, aye. Thanks, Mike.
So the
Good night, Joe.
meeting is, did I ask Dr. Baker? I'm sorry, Commissioner Baker?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
You asked me.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much.
Okay.